So, Ruben and I were going to talk about something kind of complicated, and then we decided while we were talking that we need to talk about the route tree and sort of reconcile the differences in different systems route naming, right? For example, route tree is numbers 1 through 9, but hell, what's 1 for me might be 3 for somebody else, or you know what I mean? So we're going to try to clarify some of that.
Yeah.
Both for offensive and for defensive players.
Yeah.
Now, I've actually done a whole freaking presentation on this, so I don't know if it would be.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just kind of even talking about what the route tree is.
Yep.
Just for some of the maybe beginner listeners or guys that are just starting to play or they haven't even thought about like what a route tree is. They just know routes.
Right.
Do you even know why the route tree was, or where it came from, or who developed it?
Good question.
You know?
Was it Bill Walsh?
Let's see.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer.
I thought you would know something like that.
I should.
Let's see though if I can find it on Google. But yeah, general terms, route tree. What 1 through 9?
1 through 9.
Is there 0?
I've never seen a 0, but I have named routes 0, like no stitch,
like
no
a
step
now
pitch,
screen or something.
or an other screen, smoke, something like that.
But yeah, generally 1 through 9, and really just kind of your base routes. Anywhere, anything from fade, post, corner, out, and slant hitch. Kind of your basic patterns. Obviously, when you get into the slot, you got crossers and sticking nods and drags, stuff like that. But
what the heck did you just say?
Yeah.
Right? That's the problem. Like stick and nod. Well, do you guys know what that means?
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't learn what a nod was until I was in the NFL, for example.
Yeah.
The stick nod, that used to get us though. Or the wide jerk. You know, all these different things. And what it comes down to at the end of the day is there's a lot of words for 9 routes.
Yeah.
Essentially. Right? Obviously, those 9 routes can be run with subtle nuances, differences, right? But in general, there's 9 places on the field that a guy might end up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
I know you were earlier. You were talking about from a defensive perspective. It's not so much about what the route is, but where it ends up.
Yeah.
As for me.
Well, again, that's if it's zone coverage.
Yeah. Yeah. But back to that. So that's for offensive guy. It's kind of more so like what is the route? How do I run it? From A to B, rather than kind of just where's the end point.
Right.
So that was interesting. You brought that up.
For a receiver, so here's the way I think about this. For a receiver in man coverage, right, the way they run the route is extremely important for the defender. But in zone coverage, what's really important is where the receivers end up, right? So, for example, I used to, in practice, a lot of times I would go against Jason Witten, who was a really good route runner as a tight end. Well, if it was zone coverage, I didn't think much of it. I would get to my zone drop. If he happened to be in my zone, then we would worry about it then, right? But whenever I had to play a man-to-man, I would end up in a trail position, just like I was supposed to do. And he would run so many stems. Like, he would run a 10-yard in, and he would have 5 different actions going on, right? So at 3 yards, he might stutter and give a little head nod to the inside. At 5 yards, he might come to a complete stop and lean to the outside, and then take off again, stop again, lean to the outside again, and then run him. And so the whole time I'm behind him, I'm, where's he going, where's he going?
Yeah.
In zone coverage, I don't have to watch all that. In zone coverage, I need to watch the quarterback. So I don't care how he got there in zone coverage. You know, makes sense?
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, that's where it can get more complicated when you're talking about different stems and getting into your actual stem and into your route.
For a receiver, for sure.
But yeah, back to the basics though. So this is the general route tree that you found.
Yeah, I actually made
that
this
you created,
one.
or you made it.
Yeah, but based off of something else I had seen.
So what was remember you told me earlier, kind of from a defensive perspective, kind of how you kind of diagnose it based on breaks and based on yardage, correct?
Yes. So very simply, so let's just work on one side of the field for the moment. Let's say, I don't know which angle's better, but let's work on the right side of the field. Okay?
Yeah, or just slide one over.
Yeah.
Middle. Yeah, you could.
Do what?
You can slide it over.
I can't. How do I slide it? Oh, it wasn't on that. It was just a video.
It was a video?
Yeah.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
You're good.
Well, let's see what it says.
Okay, let's take a look at the route tree.
Why?
Unless you could just overplay it.
Huh?
You could just overplay it in the video. Probably not enough.
This is the line of scrimmage, this white line that goes across here. Okay, so this is the right side receiver. This is a left side
Skip
receiver.
ahead a little bit.
Just turn it up on your iPad too.
Turn it off.
Up.
At these
Let's
routes.
step in.
A route tree is essentially one
it
straight
does.
line. Okay, that represents sort of the trunk of the tree. Or the
Okay,
trunk
so
of the tree.
I'm not going to bore you with this. So the way I look at it is this, right? The very first thing is the 9. So everything is built off of the 9, and that's not only true in the route tree, right? But that's probably also how you teach receivers to start their routes. Everything needs to look like a 9, right?
Yeah, I always tell my guys, you want to make every single route look like it's a go.
Yep.
Because then it's like
It's a threat.
the DB has to backpedal.
Yep.
Now, if you do break in or out,
It's the same thing when you have a fast pass rusher. They need to always threaten with speed because
Yeah.
that's what's dangerous, right?
Yep.
And work everything else off of that. So this is the base. This is where we work off of. So 9 is a go, okay? Meaning it's the deepest route. You're just trying to get vertical. Now there's sometimes that you bend slightly outside and sometimes you bend slightly inside, and we're not going to worry too much about that when we're talking about just the numbers. But 9 is the deepest route. It's straight down the field. Okay. Then after that, it's all even numbers are in breaking routes. So this is the right side receiver. Then all of these routes have even numbers, and the bigger the number, the deeper the route. So 8 is deeper than 6, is deeper than 4, is deeper than 2, but they're all in breaking routes. Okay. And then the same thing on the other side. It's odd numbers are out breaking routes, and the higher the number, the deeper the route. The reason I don't give specific yards on each of these routes is because everybody runs different routes, right?
Yeah.
But if as a team I'm preparing for a team, then I can say, look, people ended up in the curl zone, people ended up in the 6, in the 4. But for example, a team might run a very, very deep in breaking curl. Like I would call a deep dig a 6 as well, right? And this would have to be a pretty deep curl for it to be a 4, right?
Yeah.
This is all that matters. It's the relative distance. So if this is 10 yards, this has to be less than 10.
Yeah. And that's where I think it does get confusing, because I went and actually researched route trees and different images on Google that are out there, and there's just different consistencies on everything. Like some of them had 6s as the dig, but then they had the 4 as the hitch, or they had, the
Like this one
Yeah.
actually has hitch as the 5,
yeah,
right? Which I don't call that a hitch.
yeah,
But that's the problem with words in general.
yeah,
Right? If you just know that out breaking routes are odd and and in breaking routes are even,
Yeah.
and the bigger the number, the deeper the route, you can pretty much name any route.
yeah. And I think where it can get tricky though, like the places and the spots make sense, but then when you talk about distances,
Yeah.
because thinking about an offense, I mean, most teams generally now aren't running 5-yard ends for the most part. They're running, and if they're running in, they're going to run a 10-yard dig, 12-yard
Or they're
dig.
going to drag across the field and
Yeah.
work up to 5, right? Like
Yeah.
there might be a low drag that works
Yeah.
up to 5.
But like when you're looking at this, you're thinking like he's gonna just run straight and boom. But like
Right.
rarely will you see that.
Yeah. In some ways, it would be best to
yeah.
take the lines away and just make dots.
The dots, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of end up. But yeah, I mean, when I was looking at it, I was like, man, I couldn't find 1 or 2 route trees that were like the same.
No, no.
So we were talking about how to structure an offense and figure out how you could, come up with a number system or words to make it easier for a quarterback and for receivers to be on the same page when it comes to, hey, we're tempo or we're calling play in the huddle. If I say 38, what does that mean to each receiver
Right.
and what they're running? But I think it's something that I don't know. There needs to be some sort of
Standardization.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, system or something.
Yeah.
And because we've talked about this before, but numbers in football have been very useful in identifying things.
Yeah.
Whether it's a jersey number or the hole that you're supposed to hit,
Yeah.
or what quarter it is, what the score is, numbers are big. And for some reason, we've broken away from the numbering convention for a couple of the different aspects. One is formations. We hardly ever use numbers for formations, and we have gotten away from using numbers for routes because nobody wants to yell 38.
Yeah.
Right, to a receiver, or 83, whatever it is, to a receiver if the defense might know the route tree, which they probably do.
Yeah.
Right? So instead they say things like, let's see, would you say 38? I can't think of a single famous 38. Roy Williams from Oklahoma. No. Roy Williams from the Cowboys.
Cowboys, yeah.
I'm trying to remember what number he was in Oklahoma. 1 or 0 maybe, or something like that. Oh, 10 maybe. No, that's
Yeah.
Teddy. Anyway, Roy Williams. So they might just call that Roy Williams. Like, for example, we had defenses where it would be like 23. We call it Jordan.
Yeah.
Right? 2 to one side, 3 to the other side, called Jordan. So I think that's how names I mean, these names come from where they're running the field, obviously,
Yeah.
the flags and all that. But a lot of the names that coaches give concepts are just,
Yeah.
one-off idiosyncratic sort of nicknames because they want to maintain some level of secrecy.
Yeah.
So I'm all for that, but I think you need to know the numbers first.
Yeah, and I do think part of that too, and I experienced this in college. Like, I mean, we ran the same stuff every week, and it was like teams know it's coming, but it's like if you can't stop it, if quarterback makes the right read, if you're in the right spot at the right time,
Well, I say it all the time.
it'll work.
Peyton Manning had 5 plays with the Colts.
Yeah.
It just worked.
Yeah. So
Yep.
I think there's some general things that obviously would transfer over and kind of
You
make
mentioned.
things easier. But yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say you mentioned something about a lot of coaches tend to overcomplicate things.
Yeah. I
So
think
how do they complicate routes and route trees and route concepts for receivers?
So I don't think coaches necessarily overcomplicate route combinations or the routes themselves, but more so when it comes to whether it's game planning or getting guys in certain spots or
Right.
mismatches. Like if you've got a guy that's a burner, like don't put him on hitches all game.
Right.
Like
A lot of coaches are looking at a piece of paper, right?
Yeah.
Or X's and O's matchup.
Yeah.
But really, the game is played with people.
Yeah.
And their athletic gifts are going to pose different problems to the other team, right?
Yeah. And problems for your team.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so you got to know that, and the best ones know a lot about human behavior and their personnel,
Yeah.
and all of them know a lot about X's and O's, right?
Yeah.
So, but the best ones are the ones that understand something about human psychology. Like Vince Lombardi was known as just like this. He just had an empathic ability to understand how to get through to people.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that's an important point. It's a grave mistake that a lot of coordinators make to rely on their X's and O's to win the game as opposed to their players.
Yeah, so I think part of it is, one, wanting to be, fundamentally sound, wanting to have answers to stuff. But I think sometimes it's as simple as, hey, like, you got a guy that's, 6'6", 6'5", just put him outside, single him up, get him in single coverage and throw him a jump ball. Like,
So let's say we got a 6'6" receiver.
Mm-hmm.
How does that change the routes you're going to run? Like, let's say the coach, let's say that the coordinator calls smash, okay, and he's the one receiver. Does it matter at all that he's 6'6"? Are you going to have him do something slightly different because he's so dominantly, physically dominant?
I mean, if you got a guy that's dominant, obviously you'd want him to be on the 7,
Right.
on the corner route. Back to our numbers here,
Yeah.
7
Right.
corner route there, but so obviously he can go up and get it. You wouldn't necessarily want to put him on the hitch. You could as a distraction, like, hey, like, here's the fade,
Or
goes there, and then there's someone open on the
Or
flat.
you can run the 7 as the distraction and get him the hitch. It might just be too many eyes on the deep ball. Who knows?
Yeah. So it depends on who you got, who you're playing. But I do think it's like if you got guys, use their skill set, use their advantage skill sets to your advantage. So he's 6'6", he's going jump balls. Like put him on stuff where you can go and get it.
Right.
Don't put him on screens or something where he's got to make a guy miss or.
That makes sense. Yep. You never see a tackle or a tackle screen where the idea is that we're going to run back across the middle of the field and make people miss, right?
Yeah.
Like tackle screens.
Yeah.
So you got to know your guy's strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, no, for sure. But when it comes to, I guess, combinations of routes, that's where this kind of comes into play, where it's like people have different names for different concepts.
Right. All right. So let's
different route depths, different ways you need to break or you need to stop here or make sure you sit in the zone.
Lots of nuances to
Switch
styles. Right?
Yeah, styles and ways of running routes, but necessarily getting to the same spots.
Right.
When you go to your side of the ball, where it's like, yeah, they're doing all this, but they're just getting to these spots.
Right. I can't remember how you. There it is. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Just page down. So all right. So let's just talk about one real quick. I guess
Use your pin first.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's go X. There's the ball. All right. So we got guy here. Yeah. Let's go here, and actually let's just go one side, huh?
Yeah, that's fine.
Let's do something like this. Running back. All right. So let's get this route.
You screen recorded.
We talked about this slightly. Huh?
You screen recorded.
I'm not. You want me to?
Yeah, you should screen record it.
Probably gotta make it bigger or smaller.
Oh, you said screen record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, so just use your, just record it on here, like you were. Be fun. So you got what, the space to work with?
Yeah.
Although, you know, we're not gonna be able to hear it.
Yeah. You can just overlay it though. But were you saying you had
I was just gonna run that, what you call a snag.
snag? Okay. Yeah. So let's just draw a line. Dang. I can draw a line. Boom.
Okay, so we were talking about this route a little earlier, and Ruben, you call this what?
Snag.
Snag route.
Spot. Same thing.
Yeah, and I've always called it spot. And the to me the characteristics of this route that make it a spot is you got one deep guy to the outside, and then two guys crossing, at least two guys crossing, and then one guy sitting, usually in like a low hole inside the hash, on the hash. He typically doesn't want to work all the way inside to the Mike backer. He kind of wants to stay outside the Mike backer and inside the outside backer and sit right in that soft spot. But again, he could move, right? So a lot of teams will uncover, right? Like if Mike backer pushes all the way to that number 3 route, a lot of times they'll do what's called a jerk, right? Or what's the other one? Stutter on the mic. Basically, the mic comes to you, you just run right past him. If he stays away from you, you sit in the hole. If the outside backer tries to attack, you might whip outside, right? Like to get past him. So the route itself is called for this, but variations of this can happen based on what they're getting from the defense, right?
Yeah.
How does that work? Is it like what I just said? Or does
Yeah, I mean, 'cause I feel like there's no like, hey, like we're gonna call, you know, like I think one year we called this like, hey, we're gonna call snag, but we're gonna call shake, which just means you're gonna stop and freeze and then shake to the middle.
Yep.
I
call that a stutter, but
yeah, but yeah, I feel like that's where you get all these names of different swirl and shake and all these different things. But really, it's just an adjustment off of kind of what you got the first time off of the base concept itself. So whether that's, you know, you got shake, or you call, hey, we're gonna corner post now with the flag, or hey, now we're gonna corner post and wheel up the flat route.
Is that something that you would call pre-snap, or is that something that you would alert pre-snap?
Yeah, I think generally for and I could be wrong, but I know most corners, they like to have stuff where it's like we've repped it before, we've ran it, so it's kind of a pre-planned thing. Hey, we're gonna run snag, we're gonna set up shake later, we're gonna run it a couple times, and then we're gonna come back with shake. So they've seen boom, boom, boom. Third time, hey, here comes it again, and then he's boom, boom, shake, and now he's gone. So it's kind of more of a setup, like setup plays, but there are times too where it's like, think about the air raid, where it's like, hey, like we're finding grass, so if you know there's nobody there, run there. Here's the base kind of where you're going, but then once you get to your spots,
once you get there,
here's where you can go. Here's kind of your boundary.
I'm trying to think of like a good analogy for that. Like, you know, you go somewhere to do something, but the thing that you're actually going to do, you're not totally sure of yet. You just know that there's a variation of something.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's something like that. What is that like? I guess it's almost like anything. You know, you have a plan, you show up.
Plan, and then you got to adjust once you get there.
What did Mike Tyson say? Everybody's got a game. I mean, everybody's got a fight plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah. So it's kind of, you know, kind of like how that is as far as just finding grass. We kind of ran that when I was in college.
Is there like just a general typical set rule for receivers in certain route combinations that, you know, when you get pressed, you do this. When you get below, you do this. There are certain ones that are just kind of universal.
Yeah, I think so. Like with outside guys, if you've got a press corner, you've got a hitch called pre-snap. Like don't run the hitch unless obviously it's smash or something. But like if it's just, hey, hitch seam, if you've got press corner and you run the fade.
It's really important that you just said unless you got smash.
Yeah,
because again, now we need to know the receivers don't just need to know their routes, right? You were saying this before.
You need to know the concept. Yeah, you need to know the concept. So I think that's the biggest downfall with a lot of guys is they don't understand the concept. They just see Ocho Cinco run a hitch and go on his matchup and think, oh, I'll run that next week, but don't understand why they ran it, or don't understand, you know, why he was able to do that in the first place.
Why was it advantageous?
They just, you know, you just see the one-on-one rep and don't see the full big picture or the plays before. Like even smash, like you couldn't do that on smash because there's a corner going to your to your spot. I know I actually seen this before. I don't know if you've seen it, but I think it's something with air raid too. But they talk about the field divided into tubes.
Yep. Like silos.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like I think there's what 5 tubes or 4.
I think it might depend on
Yeah,
the coach.
yeah, 4 or 5. But it's like if there's someone gonna be in your tube,
Draw that as
you can't be there. Let's see how you.
Yeah, I don't want to go sideways. Too.
Yeah, so like if we have our half of a field, let's just say the hashes, they're bad, but numbers. Should have another. So I think obviously you got
We need to get a football field template.
yeah, you got half the field,
It's a great line.
and then you've got half of a half. So yeah, there's 4 tubes.
Yeah.
So it's like here's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
And just understanding like, hey, like if you've got, let's just say we got a smash call. So we got out of a 2x2 set, got him going there. Boom, boom.
Mm-hmm.
So in this look, obviously 2, 4, 2, 1, 2, 4 are the zones that are occupied. One's high, one's low.
Right.
What else could those outside guys do? When you talk about hitch and goes, if they hitch and go, they're going into the top half of the zone that
Right.
someone else is already occupying.
Right.
The only logical thing would be if you feel like you're captain, quarterback scrambling, go to 2-3. There's no one in 2-3.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like we have, I think we ran this in college, it's called scissors. So it's like you hitch 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, quarterback got the ball, then you break to 2-3 essentially. We didn't call it that, but thinking back, like we could have called it that.
Yeah.
Because no one's there, right?
Yeah.
Well, unless you got a running back or whatever, something running something.
When you say nobody's there, you mean no offensive players?
No offensive players there. Yeah.
All right.
So the thing about
Does that hurt you though?
Yeah. The thing about
because now you're not baiting
yeah
the fly guy.
yeah, but I think this is not like you're holding here for at least
You're just
2-3 seconds.
Yeah, you've already affected him.
Yeah. So he's either broke down or he's dropped off to the corner, and either you're open in the flat or you're not.
Right.
This would be, hey, he's still on you. Safety went off from the corner. Both of y'all standing still right there. Boom, take off.
This is an important point. Yet on Friday night of the game, I noticed that our DBs were playing the route that had been run earlier in the game.
Yeah.
And that the receivers were making these really small adjustments. Things like, quick head nod.
Yeah. Look this way. And
right.
break that
And then
way.
just get inside, right? Just get the leverage.
Yeah.
And the problem is, as a DB, if you don't break on the hitch, you're going to be late to the hitch.
Yeah.
If you do break on the hitch and it's a double move, you got a problem.
Yeah.
Right. So that's that's a whole other topic, right? Like how are we gonna handle the double move? But defenders need to at least be aware that just because they ran the route this way early in the game, they're almost definitely not gonna run it exactly that way later.
And I think a part of it too is just understanding scenario, understanding down the distance, understanding
situational awareness.
Situation, because I think even on one of the double moves they ran, I think they ran a slant and go. It was I want to say it was like 3rd and 5 or less. They got one of the best receivers in the boundary. Film study. I watched a little bit of film. I was like, all right, whenever they put him in the boundary, double move can happen.
Right.
And I was like, hey, double move, watch double move. It's 3rd and short, like why not? And you're in plus territory, so probably two down scenario, especially now with analytics.
Well, it's the perfect time to do it. Think about it, because the corner, the safety, they're thinking we get the sticks. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's 3rd and short.
Yeah.
Obviously 2nd and short would be the best time to.
Yeah, 2nd and short would be the best play.
But still, like 3rd and short.
But thinking about it now, a lot of teams now, I've noticed, and even we do it, it's like, if we're beyond our plus 45, 40,
right.
3rd down is 2nd down.
Sure.
Right. You got 4
but
downs
again,
to get it.
again, do you go for the 1st down or do you go for the big play?
Yeah, exactly though. But it's like if it's 3rd and 5, you don't get it. It's 4th and 5.
Right. Right, because it's 4 down territory.
Yeah. You can call something 4th and 5 and get it. So it's understanding like, hey, like
so 3rd down becomes 2nd.
They're potentially in a 2 down scenario. They've got one of their best guys in the boundary. Yeah. You're probably thinking play the sticks. They're probably thinking, yeah, they know that, so we're gonna call double move, knowing that we don't get it. You got one more play to get 5. So
and the corner can't guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can't guess, but you can at least. I don't know how you coach. I don't coach defense, but it's like maybe you play inside leverage. Play the sticks hard, and then if he does double move, you can at least engage him.
That's the only. That's the only answer is to play the inside leverage.
Yeah.
And that's where we kept getting beat. Honestly, it was just.
So yeah, that's tough. I think off topic, but corner, DB, hard position. in
Oh
football.
yeah.
I
mean,
especially
corner
now.
corner might be the hardest job. Period. Like,
Yeah.
I always wonder about that. You know,
Yeah.
I was terrible at man coverage
Because
as a
it's,
player.
because it's, especially in man, it's like the wideout knows where he's
Don't
going.
understand how they stay.
Yeah, he knows where he's going, but you don't know where he's going unless you just give it away.
The
But
really good ones seem to have a little bit of like precognition, like they almost have ESP. Like
Yeah.
they can sense something. Like
Yeah.
when I used to watch Revis play during his
Mhm.
masterful season 2009.
Yeah.
I just couldn't understand. You know, you see birds and fish
Mhm.
fly and flock together. They move exactly at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's because they have these central lines, these nerve lines that they have a sense we don't have.
Mhm.
I feel like corners, really great corners, have that same sense, so
that
that you
sixth sense.
see that bird turn. You know, like
Yeah.
you turn with them.
Yeah, and that's when it comes back to the route tree. If you make everything look like the 9, corner's got to play you honest.
Yeah.
And then not even talking about, hey, if you take an inside stem, then go on your 9, or
Right.
take a spray release. You can make one route. I always tell my guys, you can run a route 3, 4, 5 different ways. That's your biggest asset,
Yeah.
especially if you play teams with man coverage, because you can run a slant 3 to 4 different ways. You can run a out 3, 4, 5 different ways and make it look different every single time.
I always have to come back to this point because it's so important for defense, especially in high school. Reroute.
Mhm.
All right, so we're talking about all these different ways to get to different routes, to get to different spots on the field, right? The way that a defense can take that away without guessing at the route or anything is just knocking guys off the routes. You send a guy into a lane he doesn't want to be in and make it hard for him to get back. That kills that route and probably the route next to it, right? Because the
Yeah.
concept is it relies on spacing.
Yeah.
Let me show you. Why is this not? What the heck? Oh, because it shows it up there.
Yeah, you keep hitting the home button.
Oh, I do.
Yeah, just hold it. Press it. Pause. Yeah.
Why? I don't want to reset my password.
I think that you help logging it button
Oh,
on
I
it
do.
too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got a question for you.
Yep.
So do you think that, I think I asked you earlier, but do you think coaches are more, they overcomplicate game plans or overcomplicate, just the game in itself?
Yeah. So I think that the main reason coaches overcomplicate things is because they don't have enough faith in their players. I think that the smartest coaches or I think the ones that do the best job with their personnel and their scheme are the ones that teach the players the concepts that they need to know. In other words, life is a lot easier as a coach and as a player if your players know everything you know. If they know at least what pertains to them that you know, you've got you out there with them. You know what I mean? But if you're constantly having to dictate exactly what they're going to do in every moment of a game, they're completely reliant on you, right? And you're one person in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
If instead you empower all your players by teaching them schemes and teaching them the terminology, the correct stuff, it's going to take time, right? You have to take time out of your day, which high school coaches don't have a lot of anyway, to teach these kids. But essentially, I think what ends up being a bit lazy or maybe just unfaithful in terms of coaches don't trust their players to get this stuff. To me, that's the biggest problem, right? The coach himself tries to take on all of the complexity and the sophistication in order to dumb it down for the player. You don't need to, right? If you teach the player, then everything's dumbed down already. Like anything you say is already understandable.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason that's so important is because in the middle of the game, there's a lot of considerations, right? But if you've already practiced the autonomy of them making decisions, then you don't have to run around like a chicken with your head cut off during the game. You know that you've got 11 guys on the field that would do what you would do.
Yeah.
So to me, that's the biggest problem with complicated schemes is that it's a sophisticated game now, right? You hear a lot about checkers and chess and people are overcomplicating. Yes and no. It's a complicated game. There's a lot of things that are going on, and there's a lot of considerations. And there are some coaches, McVay, right, that are sort of geniuses, and you can see why that's effective.
Yeah.
But most people aren't geniuses.
Yeah.
Right. So most people need a team, And coaches that try to do all of the thinking on their own end up without a team. They just end up with one guy who has all the information and a bunch of other robots that are waiting for you to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think that's why things get too complicated.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. I think, like you said, the game is now getting more sophisticated. I don't think complicated, but just more sophisticated because guys are trying to find different ways to do the same things.
Yeah. Maybe complex is the word.
Yeah, complex, but I do think it comes back down to just fundamental truths about the game.
Yeah.
Like there's certain things that will work and some things that just won't work.
Sure.
No matter what you call it against or what you do it against. It may work like off luck or botch play.
And I think we should practice that. Like I think we should practice situations because so I played for a lot of coaches over years, but with Bill Parcells, for example, every Friday we would have a situational period. Right?
Yeah.
And it would be things that you might not ever think of. One thing that always hit me was, say it's 4th down and there's 7 seconds left on the clock, or 4th down, 7 seconds left. You don't want to punt it to the other team because they got a great returner or something, but you're also worried that if you, you're worried if you punt it, they get a return, but you got to use that time somehow, right? So most people didn't know, but he told us, and we ended up using it in the game a lot. You just put the quarterback in shotgun, have him drop out. You've seen this now since a million times. Throw the ball out of bounds as deep as you can, and that play takes 7 seconds.
Yeah.
So you use the clock that way. But stuff like that is really important. I see it all the time in high school, at every level. Oh man, Tennessee or Alabama did a terrible job of this the other day, right? So understanding that situation is so important because if you got 7 seconds on the clock, and let's say you got the quarterback is going to run this play, he doesn't know that he's supposed to throw it out of bounds. I'm sure they call that, but let's say he throws it out of bounds and there's still a second left on the clock. Well, now it's the other team's ball with 1 second going in.
Yeah.
You got a problem. So I think it's really important to teach the kids, like, okay, we're talking about concepts, but also situations.
Yeah.
Here are the concepts. We were trying to get people in certain spaces, right? So that if this guy is in your space, you can't get there. So now we got to use some common sense.
Yeah.
But common sense isn't common
No.
until it's common.
Yeah.
It's common sense to you because it's already in your head.
Yeah.
But a player who isn't aware of that, it's not common. It's not common sense. So anyway, that's a lot of talking for nothing. But my point is, I think the fundamental problem with the coach-player disconnect in terms of complication, in terms of communication, all of that, is a fundamental lack of faith in the player's intelligence or ability to pick up concepts. Yeah. Which is, it's egotistical a bit.
Because, part of that too, I think, like I've seen before too, like where maybe you do a lot of things, you maybe install a bunch of different things, players get it, understand it, but then you get to the game and then we don't run any of the stuff that we practice. We just go back to kind of day 1 or day 2 stuff, or we pick 2, 3, 4 plays out of the book and we just spam, which can work theoretically, but it's like, if you've got guys that can make plays, why would you not, from our offense perspective, why would you not get them the ball or figure out ways or use those ways you created to get them the ball? Right. No matter the situation, whether you're down 7 or somebody gets hurt or.
Well, my contention, I guess, is that those are all important considerations that shouldn't wait till the game day to be had, right? Because, we used to practice. So Menhawk was quite the perpetrator of personal fouls. He's a nice guy, but for whatever reason, he would get 1 or 2 personal fouls a game the first half of the season. So we started practicing, talking shit to each other and not reacting. Do you remember this? Were you part of that team? Yeah, you were. So we would take a period out, like right after like a break or like special teams or something. We'd take 5 minutes, and we just started like, okay, we got a group of 3 people. 2 people had to like harass the hell out of the other person. Everything. Like call them the worst names you could think of. Say something about their mother. Whatever. Anything you can say that could be horrible. Say it. Do it. Poke them. Touch them. Push them. And the other one literally just has to stand there and take it. And we practiced that because we were having a problem with those kind of penalties. We had 30 yards a game, and that matters. Yeah. So we started practicing that, and then it went way, way down. I don't know if you had another one for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Sure. Mine were all playing penalties, though.
Understand? Yeah. Guess what? They counted for the same distance.
Oh, yeah, no, they did.
Yeah. But back to the question or the thought, it's like, I think sometimes, I think you said it before, but like, there's X's and O's, but then there's ability and a little bit of psychology, a little bit of who you're coaching, who you got out there, that might not match the X's and O's, but can make it work on.
Figure out a way to make the X's and O's bend to the player.
To the player, yeah, exactly. So I think sometimes you can get overly analytical on like, hey, they're giving us this look, this should be open, this should be there, but then you do it, they don't run their defense correctly, or someone doesn't block a certain body, and then now it doesn't work. But it's like it could be as simple as, hey, we just need to give them the ball.
The most powerful thing in a complex situation is something simple.
Yeah.
And to me, what's most effective, or the best coaches do this well, they take sophisticated concepts and complex problems and boil it down to fundamental rules.
Yeah.
So that, and not just because the players aren't intelligent enough, but because they have to make this decision just like this on the field, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to make it. I would never say dumb it down, because that's not what we want to do. We want it to be smart, right? But we want it to be smart and simple.
Simple, yeah.
So to me, that's where the complexity comes, is from sort of a general lack of willingness to put in the initial time to save that extra time on the back end.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So, any thoughts on that, Nighthawk?
No,
Rube, got anything else?
it's good.
Want to wrap it here?
Yeah, let's wrap it.
All right. Thanks for joining us again. If you enjoyed the video, please click the subscribe and like buttons. Did I say
All the
that?
buttons, all YouTube
Click
buttons.
buttons, please. And
Like, subscribe, comment.
yep. And we'll be back again next week for another installment.